Right, hi guys. So what I've got here is the Rotolite EOS in a softbox, and I'm going to do some shadow work. What I've actually got here is a dummy bullet. It's actually from like the War and Peace show. They were selling them as just ornaments and stuff like that. So, but it's a very good thing to get shadows and harsh shadows from. But as you noticed, diffused light gives really soft shadows. You can just about see a shadow there. So what we actually need is to discard the Rotolite EOS there, and what I'll do is I'll have it on, but I'll just turn it down a bit, just so we can carry on seeing what we're doing. But what we need is actually a focused, strong, powerful light to give us some real sharp shadows. So I'm going to shoot a few different objects, from this to, it could be anything, a coin to whatever, and just mess around with shadows. Alright guys, so you're probably going to see a little bit of flickering on the screen because that's just down to the light I'm actually using. I'll try to, yeah, you can see it getting bad there. Where'd it go? You can see it getting really bad. There's the lines. So that's actually the refresh rate of the Lensa torch that I've got. That's pretty mad. So anyway, let's try and sort that out a little bit. That's about as good as it's going to get. But anyway, as you can see there, there's actually quite a good shadow there. So you can move it around, obviously make it shorter, longer, depending on what I'm doing. You know, different angles, move it around. And obviously if you go too crazy, you're going to get some kind of interesting patterns and things like that. So it's definitely something that you can experiment with. This is both lights on actually. So now we've got two shadows. See if there's, so it V's off. There you go. So it's a case of messing around, experimenting. But as you can see here, with the Rotolite EOS turned down, you're still getting a little bit of shadow on the right hand side there that is heavily diffused. So there's no real detail in that shadow at all. So you need either, you know, a very focused light, i.e. You know, a torch, obviously bright sunshine, stuff like that. But obviously the sunshine, you can't necessarily move the shadow because unless you wait, and that's the reason why obviously sundials work with a point and you end up with that shadow. It tells you the time. So you know, it's just a case of messing around. It could add some interesting looks to a photo. You just got to be very careful on how bright the torch is, how long your exposure is, and things like that. So this, I'm just going to mess around now and experiment. I'm going to change the subject as well to a few different things to see what we can capture, and go from there. Ideally, I want the shadow roughly the same length as the object to give me a kind of almost like a clock, I suppose, almost like a clock face. There we go. So messing around, but I've just worked out that if you have your torch too close, you end up basically flaring the shadow, and it causes trouble. So if you bring the torch back further away, you end up with a sharper, more constant shadow, which is really nice. And the other way of doing it is actually a mobile phone torch works very well straight out of the box, but it's nowhere near as bright enough compared to the torch I'm using. So, and I've got the torch on low, believe it or not. So I've got a lot of scope there to mess around, but it does allow you to do stuff with your mobile phone torch. It will give you things that you can do. So you know, there's the option there to use that if you don't have a torch. You've also got that torch on your phone. So let's have a little experiment, take some photos, and see how well it works. It's just a shame it gets a refresh rate on this torch compared to the EOS. There's no refresh. But yeah, so let's have a look, and maybe I'm going to change to a couple of different objects so we get some interesting shadows, things with holes in and things like that to cast light through them, so you end up with an interesting shadow, stuff like that. So this is the first shot that I'd chosen to use, and as you can see, pretty good. It's pretty boring as it goes, but it's experimentation. This is how you get good with a camera, how you get good with your skills, and keep building them. So now I've got a sort of an old, bit like a toilet roll, and depending on where you put the light, so if I shine it through, you can obviously set lighting through it, around, up and down, however you want really. So that works quite well. You can really add in different things. You can also stick a smaller light from behind, for example, and it will come through like that, which I have got a small lamp. Remember my, if it will go in, my small little light. I don't know if it's going to hide. There we go. So now we can't see that. That gives an interesting glow. So we can mess around with that as well. So let's try that. So as you can see, the toilet roll now shining a light through it a little bit to at a certain angle to get a random shadow with a bit of light in the middle. Almost like a little bit of an eye in the middle there, but that worked quite nicely. A little bit of colour casting just to add a bit of difference. This is the light shining back through from inside, the little mini light. But also another little light shining on to give me an interesting sort of above looking down shadow. It's experimentation, guys. It doesn't always work that well. Some screws here. I thought it worked really nicely in black and white. Kind of gave it a film look, a bit of older kind of feel. A little bit of grain there and everything. Looked quite cool as well. And then the same shot here. This is one of my favourites actually. Didn't line it up all that well, but actually it really works quite nicely. When you zoom out, got my fingers there, and then you've got the curved shadow there due to the background being slightly curved. And then the last couple of shots here, an apple sprayed with a little bit of water just to add a little bit of interest to the texture, and then shooting quite low with the quite high with the torch to get the shadow very short. And then a different version is this one here, which is actually the shadow that's shooting lower with the torch, shining up, giving us a longer shadow. So quite an interesting look, and it's just a case of messing around, guys. At the moment, you know, a lot of us are sat at home doing nothing. You know, the weather's rubbish, and the fact that we can still take photos, there's plenty of stuff around your house. Have a little experimentation, see what you can do, and just learn from it, and just enjoy what you do. You know, create a new piece of art that no one's done. So anyway, guys, don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell, and I shall see you soon.